And before beginning today, I'd like to honor the land that we're on, to reflect and keep this in mind at the forefront of our minds as we start this conversation today. This land has been the site of human activity since time immemorial and is the traditional territories of the Wendat, Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and Métis. These treaties and other agreements, including the One Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, are agreements to peacefully share and care for the land and its resources. Other Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers were invited into this covenant in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. We are mindful of broken covenants and we strive to make this right with the land and with each other. I would also like to acknowledge those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. And so I honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. Given our continuing conversation on housing, we think it's important to not only acknowledge and act in ways that honor Indigenous connections to this land, but it's also important to understand and rectify the disproportionate impact that the housing crisis has on Indigenous communities across this land as we engage in this work. As we know, access to housing remains increasingly urgent and complex of an issue for marginalized groups within the wider housing crisis. And among these marginalized groups are newcomers of varying status, including those who are undocumented and have different identities and circumstances. TSLIP's Newcomer Services Collaboration Working Group had identified newcomer access or lack of access to housing as an urgent issue of focus within the newcomer serving sector in our current work plan. And in response, the working group has organized this Lunch and Learn webinar series designed for newcomer serving sector staff, so they may better help newcomers navigate and access the housing supports and resources, whether financial or otherwise, that are available to them across the city. Today's session is the third in the series. And while this series is a small step, we heard from our partners that it would be a valuable resource if we centered each lunch and learn on programs and supports that are available to newcomers with different identities and circumstances. And today, Drew Dyce from the Neighbourhood Information Post is joining us to present on some of the programs that they offer, including their trusteeship and utilities programs and a little bit about the rent bank. And after the presentation, we'll have some time for a Q&A. So feel free to put any questions in the chat as we go or during the Q&A period. Thank you, Drew, for being here. I'll pass it over to you now so that you can introduce yourself and get started with your presentation.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks everyone for having me here today. So again, my name is Drew. I am a trusteeship team lead with the Neighbourhood Information Post's voluntary housing trusteeship program. And I do know a little bit about the other programs that we offer here. So I will give a brief overview of those as well. I'm sure many of our programs will be very helpful to newcomers. So I don't have, a slideshow presentation or anything today, but what I will do, I'm just going to bring up our website quickly, just so you can have a look at it, just to get familiar with it. And then, oh, okay. All right, never mind that. So the website, Neighborhood Information Post, nipost.org. It's really easy to find. If you just Google, looking for help with rent, they'll probably direct you to the to our website as well, or if you Google just looking for help with energy bills in Toronto, it will probably bring up our website. That will be one of the first ones that come up. I actually can't share the screen right now, but that's okay. Again,
sorry,
it's
Drew,
really.
I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to share that now if you'd like.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. There we go. Okay, thank you. So yeah, you can see it's fairly simple. We have our services listed here. We have, if you have any questions, we've got our email. Someone will get back to you within 24 hours, ask about any programs. The telephone number right there that goes to our receptionist, just hit 0 and just say, you know, I need help with rent, or I need help with the energy, and they'll be able to quickly get you in touch with the correct person. It's very, very, very simple. So yeah, that's really the only thing I wanted to make sure that you see, and just so I can drive that into you. It's the neighborhood information post. We serve the entire city of Toronto, you know, all the way from Scarborough to Etobicoke. Anyone can apply. Most of the programs are pretty low barrier. So we try to serve absolutely everyone in the community. Our actual physical office is located at 269 Gerrard Street East. That's downtown East Side. We are in the second floor of the library building. We have been in operation since 1969, always known as the Neighborhood Information Post. We did want to celebrate our 50th anniversary a couple years ago, but unfortunately COVID kind of squashed that, but that's just the way it is. So the Neighborhood Information Post was kind of acting as the internet before the internet came along. So social workers from various organizations would come and meet at Neighborhood Information Post, exchange helpful information like we're doing today, and learn about each other's programs. You know, with the advent of the internet, of course, people don't really need to do that anymore, but we did keep the name, and we do offer some specific programs that I'm going to get into today. I should note, if you do have any questions, I don't mind at all. If you don't want to wait till the end, that's okay. You can shout it out, or you can use that little hand icon, and maybe I'll see you. I should be able to. Okay, so let's get into what services we offer. Just the general overview. If we go down here, there's basically 5 general areas. The Toronto Rent Bank, obviously a very, very important one. Our energy assistance programs, housing trusteeship program. Again, that's the program I work for. We have an income tax clinic that is run every March. And then we have access and connections programs. And these are a few different things. I'm actually going to start there and work out from that center. So our office, technically, we are a drop-in resource center. We're part of the drop-in network as well. So people can come in and sit in our front office. We have some computers there. People can check their email, check Facebook, work on resumes, whatever they need to do. They can print off a resume. I think we're charging about 5 cents a page for printing, but that's not so bad. But that is a helpful little area for community members who, again, won't have internet access at home. You don't necessarily have to have an appointment. Again, if you just drop in and there's a computer available, you can use it for an hour. And if there's no one else waiting in line, then you can use it longer than that. So that's a really great program. Again, open to everyone in community if they'd like to come in. Also, we have a mail and message program. This program could be very useful to newcomers, particularly anyone who hasn't established secure housing yet. So the mail and message program works like this. A person just needs to show a piece of ID and they can sign up for the mail and message program. And so they can start giving out our phone number and our mailing address. So people can have their, maybe a CPP check or even an ODSP check. If they don't have a bank account for it to be deposited into, they're not living at a fixed address, they can have it mailed to our office. And the person would just need to come in, show their ID, and we would open up their file and give them whatever mail is there waiting for them. People can also give out our front desk number and have voice messages left there as well. A person can just call up and say, I have a message for so-and-so, and our receptionist will just write it down on a piece of paper and stick it into that person's file. And they can come in whenever we're open, again, just show their ID, and they can have access to any voicemails that have been left for them or any mail that's there. And there's also no service to that one. And it's really easy to sign up. It just takes a few minutes to sign up. I'm going to look at some of these questions here.
Yeah, Drew. Yeah, there's some questions. And so about the same topic you just talking about is that program is awesome about the main program. Do folks need to register for that service first? Any other eligibility criteria?
Yes, good question. So no, that one is very, very low barriers. To sign up, we really just need to see one piece of government identification, and that's it. Health card, Ontario photo ID card, a driver's license, passport would be fine. Most people use their health cards, I find, to sign up to that program. Many people don't have IDs, so we will make exceptions. If someone comes in, with a social worker who can vouch for that person's identity, we will likely sign them up without any hassle. Again, as long as a social worker can vouch for that person's identity, and we have some way of knowing who that person is when they do come in to pick up their mail. Sometimes we will just ask for a signature when they sign up, just so we can match their signature to what's on what they signed when they signed up for the program. So again, that's just for people without IDs. We're trying to make it possible for them to have a place where they can get mail. So again, yeah, it's pretty simple to register for that one, just a piece of ID. If there's no ID, we'll try and work something out if possible. I see another question here. Hi, Drew, can you expand if your rent and hydro help is free, or how does it work? There are no fees to sign up for those programs, and I'm going to get into those in greater detail in a few minutes here. So back to our community access programs. Again, as I mentioned, we had our computer drop-in area. We have our mail and message program. Those are both very popular and very useful. There are some other things that we do for the community. Being located here, downtown East Side, we're around Gerrard and Parliament. That's like the Sherborne area south of there. You know, we're close to Allen Gardens, that area of town, but to the a little bit to the east of there. There are actually a lot of Chinese seniors living in the area. So we have a number of staff who are dedicated to putting on little events and programs for those Chinese seniors. Like we had a calligraphy class, how to use an iPad. I think they did a photography class. They'll do healthy cooking. So that is for, again, the Chinese seniors in the community. That is kind of specific to that demographic, but we do also, we have been holding some community outreach programs in Moss Park and Regent Park, which are close to here as well. We have someone doing community outreach there, and sometimes they will put on you know, a movie night on Zoom, and they'll also have other programs to help people who may need it, newcomers as well. Specifically, one thing that we do, this is actually part of our drop-in services that I forgot to mention, is we do have a form filling service. So if there's anyone, you know, who needs to fill out, say, an application for old age security, or maybe they have some papers that need to be filled out for, you know, immigration services, newcomer services, anything like that, whether it be on paper or online, they can just come in and speak with our receptionist and make an appointment. And when they come back for the appointment, the receptionist will do as best they can to go over whatever form needs to be filled out and go through it step by step with the client. So that is a really great little community program that we have that's easy to access. Really, anyone can do that thing. Do we do this application for citizenship? Yeah, as far as I know, there really aren't any restrictions on the types of applications that we do. If people come in looking for, you know, help with job applications or a resume, we probably would direct them to one of the employment centers. They would be better suited to help people with that. But with a citizenship application, yeah, I don't think there's any problem there. Again, our receptionists, they don't have formal training on all these forms. We will just look at what's presented there in front of us, and we'll do as best we can. If there's something we're unsure about on the form, we will use our patience and call whatever government agency is behind it and try to get some answers there. So we may not be able to do everything in one sitting, but it can certainly be worked out. So that's another great community program that we have there that's worth mentioning. So again, I'm just going to bring up the website again. So that was our Access Connections program. The next thing I'm going to go into is our income tax clinic program. This is done once a year. Again, it's for pretty much anyone who's low income. People who are, you know, working, they usually go to H&R Block. It's primarily for low income people. We don't do a lot of screening. It's mostly return clients who sign up for that one, but there's no fee there. You would call in February. They give you an appointment for March, and the person is going to either drop off their tax documents, or they are going to get on a Zoom call at the appointed time. And what we are going to have ready for you is a volunteer accountant. These are people who do not work for Neighbourhood Information Post. They're just doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. We have about 6 to 10 of them. and they will be there at that appointment for the clients, again, over the phone or on Zoom. We used to do it in person before the pandemic, but everything changes. So it's going to be a half-hour session, and that volunteer accountant will go over all the documents with the client, make sure everything is in good order, and then they will submit the taxes. Generally, that they do it electronically right there and then. And again, that's generally for low-income people, because their tax documents won't be complex, and so it can be done just in half an hour. Because otherwise you'd be dealing with business receipts and investment documents and mortgages. So again, it's better if things like of those nature go to places like H&R Block, but very, very simple returns should be done by this income tax program for free. Again, most of the people who sign up are either on ODSP or we have a lot of senior pensioners who use that program as well. And again, that is just for the month of March. We do that one, but people can call our receptionist in February to schedule an appointment. Again, there's a number at the top of the screen. Everything you need to know about our programs, just come to the site. If you have any questions, again, just email us, call us. We're happy to help. Okay. And next, I'm going to move on to our Toronto Rent Bank program, and then I'll go energy and trusteeship. So the Toronto Rent Bank program, oh, I just see a question here. I imagine you make a lot of referrals to neighborhood legal services and other community legal clinics. Yes, we do. There's a lot of stuff that are beyond our capability. So if we see anything that's required, for lawyers or has to be submitted to a law firm, then yeah, it's probably better that, as you say there, neighborhood legal services should definitely handle that instead of us. How accessible is trusteeship program? Do you have a waiting list? Unfortunately, we did have a waiting list, but not anymore. I will talk about that when we go into more depth on the trusteeship services. Unfortunately, right now we're not taking community referrals, but I will get into that. Tim, did you have a question? Do you want to shout it out?
It wasn't a question. It was just a reminder, because I imagine everyone on here is a service provider to newcomers, and they often are very encouraged to try and keep their numbers up and not lose clients and things like that. And so often there is a reticence about referring people to legal clinics, and it's very important that when their clients are involved in a dispute with a landlord, or problems with their employer, or issues around immigration, or income maintenance programs. These are fundamental legal issues in the area that we call poverty law. And community legal clinics are the best place to get that advice for free. Either the service provider can contact them, or they can feel safe in referring people to the clinic. They're not going to lose their client. We're not going to take their client away from them. We're just going to give them advice. And we can also provide legal education sessions to your agency or any other. But I do find a lot of complications arise when service providers try to solve what is essentially a legal issue. Even in how forms are filled out, and medical requests and things can complicate appeals later. So I just wanted to poke that in there, and I will shut up now.
Well, thank you for that, Tim. Yeah, I agree 100%. Sometimes we have to deal with the landlord tenant board myself as we're related to housing. So I'm very, very cautious about stepping into those waters. And so, yes, that's why, as I mentioned before, yeah, we do sometimes do have to take the safe route and send people to neighborhood legal services or whatever else maybe in the area. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. That is very important. Yes, so the rent bank, as I mentioned before, our programs are citywide. So anywhere from Etobicoke to Scarborough can call our office and get connected with someone in the rent bank. Since COVID, most things have shifted to remote work. Our trusteeship workers are in the office every day, but workers for the rent bank and energy assistance programs are largely working remotely, which is fine. But again, people can speak with our receptionist and she'll transfer them to one of those remote workers who can answer any questions or get an application started, or just a quick Google search on, assistance with rent, help with rent. It's going to bring up Rent Bank. It should be right. It's right at the top of your search page. So Rent Bank is a free service, and it has been offering loans for people who are facing eviction and have fallen behind on their rent. They'll provide also, if people are in a bad housing situation and they need both first and last month's rent, Rent Bank can provide that as well. So that's really helpful, especially for people who are in a bad home situation and they need to get out. It can be very difficult to get first and last month's rent. So again, I don't work for the Rent Bank program, so I don't know a lot of the details, a lot of the ins and outs. I don't want to say, who's eligible and who's not, but I know that they are going to be looking for some things. They do ask for a lot of documents like leases. They have asked to see bank statements, pay stubs from clients, because I know they're looking to make sure that the client is able to maintain their housing on their own moving forward after they've received a rent bank loan. Now, the rent bank is actually switching to grants as well. I don't know if it's fully implemented yet, in that everyone who is approved for rent bank is getting a grant. I'm pretty sure they're moving towards that. But if they still are giving out loans, the loans only have to be paid back $25 a month minimum, and there's no interest as well. So that also is very helpful. So again, yeah, there's really no fees there. Again, unless the person is getting a loan and then they'll have to pay it back. But again, $25 a month is pretty manageable for most people. And yes, a person will have to gather lots of documents that they'll have to show the rent bank intake worker, but they can scan those documents themselves and email them to the worker. They can fax them in. They can come into our office and leave them with our reception, and reception will get them to the rent bank worker. We find the rent bank workers are pretty accessible. And that is a really great program. It's been around for a long time. It's prevented a lot of evictions and kept a lot of people in their homes. So that is the rent bank program. The energy assistance programs work in a similar manner. There are two distinct programs. People normally will sign up for both of them at the same time, as they're both very helpful. The first one, the LEAP program, LEAP, that's the Low Income Energy Assistance Program. So this is for someone who is paying their own hydro. It wouldn't be included in their rent. Someone is paying their own hydro from Toronto Hydro or Wise Meter. Enbridge Gas, I think, is covered in this program as well. They'll deal with gas bills. And this is not a loan. This is a grant. It goes up to, I think, around $500. It could be more in some circumstances if things are severe. But a person just has to come in, show the, or pardon me, not come in, but like the rent bank, they'll just get in touch with an energy assistance worker, and they will provide the documents that that worker needs to see, namely a hydro bill with an amount owing. Some people wait right up until they get a disconnection notice to find our program. So that's another document that people will come in. Toronto Hydro, I think they still give out these neon green disconnection notices that they put on people's doors. So if that is brought to the LEAP program, the LEAP program actually has been able to contact Toronto Hydro the same day and cancel those disconnections. So it can work pretty quickly, but again, the documents have to be there. And like the rent bank program, the energy assistance workers are looking at hydro bills and bank statements to make sure that the person can pay their hydro moving forward, and that they're not being irresponsible with their money. It's kind of a little screening thing just to make sure, people aren't, spending $20, at McDonald's every day as opposed to paying their hydro bill. So that might be a reason why someone is denied the grant. It doesn't happen very often, but unfortunately, yeah, grants are denied sometimes. And so that also is a low income program as well. That's another reason why they need to see bank statements and any pay stubs, just to make sure that people are under that LICO, that low income limit. That's what they're looking for. So that is a really great program. It helps a lot of people every year. As we know, the hydro rates are going up every year, and inflation. So we're probably going to see the numbers go up for that program as well. People applying for those energy assistance grants. And it is a one-time grant. I believe you can only apply for it once a year. But again, that's just the overview. If you need any more details on that, it would be best to send us an email, and we can have an energy assistance worker get in touch with you. But that's another really great program. So again, that's the LEAP program, Low Income Energy Assistance for people who have hydro arrears. Okay, so that's just like $100 they're behind on their hydro and they can't pay it. They should reach out to that program. There is another energy assistance program. It is a provincial program. It's called the Ontario Electricity Support Program. People often sign up to this at the same time they're applying for a LEAP grant. And what this program does is it offers an ongoing credit that will be applied to someone's hydro bill. So again, that's the Ontario Electricity Support Program. I think people can even sign up for it on their own online, if I'm not mistaken, but they can reach out to us if they need help with the application. And again, people will have to show that they are low income. and once approved, they'll see a slight reduction on their hydro bill every month. You know, it may not be huge, it may be $8, but for some people who don't use a lot of electricity, it can add up pretty quickly month over month. I've seen people who have actually a negative balance on their hydro bills, so it works out pretty well. You know, they'll look at their hydro bill and they won't owe anything, and they'll actually have, like, you know, a $45 credit. So that can be a really good program as well. Again, that's the Ontario Energy Support Program, OESP. Okay, so those are our two energy assistance programs. And lastly, I'm going to talk about our trusteeship program. That's the voluntary housing trusteeship program. Some of you may have heard of the Ontario Public Guardian and Trusteeship. That is much different in that it's not voluntary. The trustees there have complete, you know, financial control over their clients. They pay bills for the clients without the client's consent. It can be difficult and costly for a client to get into the public guardian and also out of the public guardian as well. So voluntary trusteeship programs offer a solution to that. People can sign up to our program. There are no fees whatsoever. And we are pretty, we're pretty open and flexible with the services we offer to our trusteeship clients. Most of them are on ODSP right now. We also have a lot of seniors who came to us because they're falling behind on their rent. And so how it works in general is when a client comes to the trusteeship program, we will ask them to redirect their income to our office. When we receive their income, generally by a check through the mail or direct deposit, we will have it transferred into our trusteeship account. And from there, that's how we're going to manage everything. And as I said, it's very flexible. So some people, like a lot of senior citizens, you know, living in Toronto community housing, they may have a lot of arrears, maybe facing eviction. Someone will refer them to our program. We'll have them start sending their CPP and OAS checks to our office, and we can make sure their rent is paid and their arrears are paid. And if they don't want any other services, we will not manage any of their funds beyond rent and arrears. So once we write a rent check and get it to TCHC, then the remainder of the funds that we've received, we will give it to the client. We can transfer it directly to their bank account. If they don't have one, they can come in and receive cash. We do have a mobile trustee for seniors who have mobility issues. They'll actually go out into the field once a month and give seniors their cash. So that's the very basic service for trusteeship. It's all about preventing eviction. So that's number one. If a person is signing up for our program, for a trusteeship program, it's to have their housing maintained. We'll also pay rent for, you know, we have a few people who are employed or receiving OW or ODSP. Yes, ODSP does pay the rent directly. But technically, if a person is part of a trusteeship program, then the trustee should be paying, but ODSP does still pay for us. So those ODSP and OW clients, again, once the rent is taken care of, there are other services that we can help with, although a person doesn't have to sign up with these necessarily. So other things that we offer A very popular one is an allowance. This is largely for people who have, a lot of trouble spending and making their funds last. We have clients who before the program would blow their entire ODSP check in, a day or two. It happens, unfortunately. So they will have their ODSP redirected to our office. We'll sit down with them during their intake and work out how they would like to divide things up, and we'll give them a weekly allowance. And they can come into the office once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever's been decided, and we'll give them that little piece of allowance. So that's a very popular service for the trusteeship program. Again, not everyone in the trusteeship program needs that. Sometimes it's just paying rent and maybe some bills as well, which is another service that the trusteeship program offers that people can sign up for. We can pay bills. Only paper bills. There's kind of a drawback there. Like we have any client getting Rogers or Bell or Meals on Wheels, we pay a lot of their bills. Sometimes there are insurance receipts that need to be paid, personal loans, debts to ambulance services, debts to hospitals, credit card debts. If the client can arrange to have those bills sent in paper to our office, then we can help pay those monthly bills as well. And all the details will be worked out over time as we get to know the client over the months. Body internet here. Okay, so I'm just about done with the whole thing anyway. I'm just on these final services that trusteeship offers. As I mentioned, paying bills, allowance, helping people with credit card debt, and learning how to budget on their own. Now, recently, it's rather unfortunate. The City of Toronto, who funds us, is changing how we work things. So we're only allowed to work with clients who are referred to us through the City of Toronto. So unfortunately, we're no longer able to take referrals directly from our community partners, social service agencies, CAMH. They used to be, social worker would just email us and we'd send them the referral forms and we get things underway, and we had a wait list. But yeah, unfortunately, going back to numbers that Tim mentioned earlier, this city wants their numbers. So now the only people who are able to apply for trusteeship through the city portals are people who are homeless or facing eviction. And that's okay. But there are a lot of people out there who aren't facing homelessness, but who are, constantly racking up a lot of debt, and they needed our help. So what we are doing is we are applying for more funding from the province of Ontario. And if we get that funding, then we can hire a couple more trusteeship workers who would be able to work with people who come from community referrals, people like yourself. And so those clients wouldn't have to go through the city's portal and referring website. Those changes are really taking place right now. I've got about 30 people on our wait list waiting to get into our program, who I unfortunately have to break the news that we have to stop the wait list and just give everyone this this link to the city's website. And go from there. So again, yes, that's the very sad news, is that we are no longer taking direct referrals from the community. Everything has to come from the City of Toronto right now. and their eviction prevention programs. What we are part of, we're part of what the city calls follow-up supports. So if a person is facing eviction, they will apply to the city's coordinated access or eviction prevention and community programs, and the city will give those people a grant, but they have to sign up for our trusteeship program in order to get those grants and stay housed. So right now, we're unfortunately letting go of a lot of clients right now, trying to get them housed with, you know, PGT, so we can make room for these new city clients. But again, hopefully in the future, we'll be able to take community referrals again, but unfortunately right now we're not anymore. So I see it's 1 o'clock there. I really tried to take my time. If you have any questions, I can take them now. I'm happy to do it, but thank you so much for listening, everyone. I hope that information was helpful.